When it comes to the subject in this video, I have covered the topic of the education system and what its practical purpose is today in a few past videos. But the main ones that connect specifically to this institution are titled The Torch of Education, Language as a Weapon, which was actually 2 talks given at the university, and finally University of Nebraska-Kearney, Torture as a School Subject. And now let's get into this video. First, when starting out, this management class that I've had to take is a very comical example of the type of behavior that is not only accepted but promoted at this institution. In the first portion, it states panic in all caps with a capitalized mark. Read this if you are already stressed about this course. Seems like that prompt is attempting to, in fact, elicit that type of response, possibly written by somebody who themselves panics when they see something like that. And then the most of this management course is all about plagiarism and well, their definition of plagiarism at least. But then when I go to my class on my business class, in order to engage with the assignment to gain a grade, and again this is another example of using grades as an extortionary method, well, it prompts you to pay a fee which, while this states is $104, it actually comes out to about $123 or roughly. And it's called My IT Lab. So this is an example that we'll see in a theme in this video of the need for somebody to go into secondary software. So with my previous experiences with these classes as listed in my other videos, they have their own software system that they call MyBlue and Canvas and all these other names. But most of the assignments up to this point have been done in that system. Now there seems to be a systematic shift to secondary software services which are within their already convoluted software system that they have. And each class has a different software system, which makes things incredibly complicated, confusing, and later we will find out a logical motive for this. And naturally, as far as with the management class, there is the stipulation that nothing late and that there will be no exceptions to this, which is a theme in other classes as well. So if, say, in the entirely probable example that you end up spending a time in the hospital, well, there's no exceptions to their late assignments. So they clearly think that late assignments are obviously more important than everything. And of course, in the management class, they just have replicated lies about what plagiarism is. And when it comes to the business class that I am currently in, it states that throughout this course, we will be utilizing Clifton strengths for students to discover and explore strengths. The cost for the access code is $19. If you have already completed your strengths assessment, you do not need to do it again. As long as you have access to your top 5 strengths, that is all you will need. We will also be using a program called Pearson. There we get that name, Pearson. My IT for Microsoft Excel training. It can be purchased through the Loper bookstore /Academos. This program costs $104, but keep in mind that passing the requirements through this course replaces the need to take a 3-credit hour class over Microsoft Office products. Even though you're spending $104 now, you will be saving thousands and several weeks of your time. This approach is set up to be in your favor. That strikes me as extortion. As you review the course schedule, you will notice the bulk of the activities and assignments take place in the first half of the semester. This is due to fitting in assignments that lead up to the career fair blah, blah, blah. And of course, naturally, in order to have access to any of this stuff, then you have to pay their really ridiculous fee. Which, mind you, that is over a third of the book's stipend that is awarded for the GI benefits for veterans, and which is about 300 something, and that's on one class. So if you imagine they're charging extortionary prices for the other software and books and whatnot, which all comes to quite a lot of money in addition to all the other forms of money that they're gaining. Worse still, when it comes to my calculus class, which is the only one where you can log into Pearson as far as I can tell, and you don't have to buy anything. However, it prompts you to allow pop-ups to continue, and that the assignments only open in pop-ups. And that, of course, is before you even create an account or log in, which I never even bothered figuring out how to do that, or if your account that you already had to create with their software is already connected to this new software that they appear to have recently instated among all the classes. But the most troubling thing, of course, about this is that allowing pop-ups would give further control and access to your different hardware and software systems, to anything that you use on the computer, basically. Now, I don't trust any of these people or any of their software, so I'm certainly not going to give them further access to my things. And this comes in the wake of a recent hack that was conducted against my computer system, specifically, in which a large portion of the files were erased. But fortunately, because I'm not an idiot, I have my files on redundant backups, some online and some offline. So the hack didn't work. Whatever was going on there, whatever was the intention behind that. Naturally, the reason for redundant backups is for exactly that. If your equipment goes down or you yourself go down for some reason or another, then there always will be evidence scattered in different places that can then be dug up. And you can't ever really find everything, especially if somebody has enough redundancy. Anyway, if we look into the user agreement for this company, Pearson, which they have contracted with, there's a few things to notice and keep in mind. First of all, we have yet another example of deprivation of rights under the color of law, where this Pearson company, under their user agreement, is attempting to give control and, well, basically it's all around the idea of recording. It's always about recording. And the important part of this user agreement is it's attempting to deter people from, of course, recording and disseminating, but also to give them control and indemnification from doing things that are unlawful with what they deem as their property. So unless you can establish it as your property, then they can completely control it and do whatever they want, basically, and you have no way around it. This, of course, is in relation to a previous course that I had to take, which fortunately was the only one, but it required a program called Respondus Lockdown, which is a rather egregious software application that takes over complete control of your computer. Fortunately, that was only used for exams, and I do believe it was invasive, and it was definitely over the top, but at least it wasn't, as far as I can tell, as egregious as these examples that are newly taking form. They also cite UTOS and AUP, which are clearly not laws, and you can do some research into those fraudulent articles that they're citing if you would like. But in moving on with the software, you're prompted to, of course, sign in or create an account, and this is a secondary software to the software that they already have constructed for doing exactly what this software is now supposed to do, which is administer the assignments. Now, why do you need two layers of software and then what are they going to do with all of these other layers that they have constructed? Now, in my accounting class, this class, whichever one it is, prompts the user to sign into an account called Wiley Plus. Now, that's an interesting name. But let's go to the terms of use of this Wiley Plus. First, in the Wiley agreement, the first thing that's important to notice is that it, in the user agreement at least, it only recognizes the jurisdiction of the state of New York as applicable law, and that the agreed jurisdiction is New York. So this is a university in Nebraska using secondary software that is attempting to lift jurisdiction from Nebraska, which it can't do, by the way, and move it to the incredibly corrupt city of New York. Now, why would they want to do that? Also, this user agreement does not recognize the Constitution as applicable law, which is according to the Constitution, of course, and is the foundation for all of these states and everything else, or at least it's supposed to. In the Constitution, it stipulates that it is the supreme law of the land. Clearly, they don't agree, and so they only recognize New York State as applicable law. And now, in an earlier part of the user agreement, we get a reason why. It states that, except as expressly permitted herein, you shall not 1. Access the services by any means other than instructions provided by the company. Use the services for any illegal or unauthorized purposes. Disrupt, damage, disable, alter, tamper, delete, or interfere with the services. Share with any third party any access codes or account information, including limitations to usernames, passwords you may create for company providing services, blah, blah, blah. And attempt to gain unauthorized access to the services or its related systems or networks, or otherwise override any security feature or exclusionary protocol. And then here's the clause that we really want to pay attention to. It states, reproduce, duplicate, copy, download, sell, resell, visit, or otherwise exploit the services or company content for any commercial purpose without the express written consent of company. That is an incredibly vague statement. And they also don't define, of course, what a commercial purpose is. But it goes further. Access the services in order to build a competitive product or service, or copy any ideas, features, functions, or graphics of the services. Notice it says to copy any ideas, features, functions, or graphics of the services. Not in relation to any particular reason, but the simple copying, according to them, is a breach of their user agreement, which is apparently a law, which can recognize only the applicability of New York state laws, not the Constitution. And finally, it states text and data mine except as permitted by Wiley's text and data mining agreement. Wiley reserves all rights to make reproductions and extractions for text and data mining. So what that tells me is very simple. This is a scheme to cover up evidence, to retain and keep control over, likely, whatever else is included in these assignments, so that what I did in my previous videos cannot, practically speaking or feasibly, be done, which is naturally deprivation of rights under the color of law, because it is entirely the right of the individual who is involved to record and keep property of things that they are personally involved in. That's the one-party agreement, which is applicable law in Nebraska. So, they know this, of course. So they contract with a secondary company that is based out of New York City, so they can attempt to move the jurisdiction and then practically keep control over all of the elements from being copied and keep control with that company in New York, so that that company can delete evidence And a person won't have evidence to back up a claim of malfeasance at this institution. And in order to hold that company, Pearson, their new secondary service provider, in order to hold them accountable and have to go to New York, recognize their jurisdiction as according to the user agreement. And they will say that you agreed to the user agreement, therefore you agreed to the jurisdiction of New York. And so they can get away with anything they want, espionage and whatnot, and cover up their tracks and do it all in a allegedly legal manner. Of course, they are ignoring many laws in this instance, but the practical and feasibility of these actions is what's important, and the motive. And it does appear that that's the motive. Well, they're doing their best, basically, to protect against evidence extraction and other methods of investigation into the willful malfeasance of these institutions. And naturally, the system here of how this has been extrapolated across different classes and the way that they bury these violations of the law, as it appears to be, into user agreements and to make it incredibly complicated and excessive. Well, all of that, of course, is to conduct their operations that could be seen as criminal, but also, more importantly, is highly suspicious towards a coordinated conspiracy towards the deprivation of rights and possibly even operations of warfare. Now, I did report 2 things to the VA, but as always, their system is amazingly ridiculous. And so the government systems, alleged government systems, protect this type of behavior at the institution. From the GI Bill feedback, which is the only method that they provide, as far as I can tell, to report malfeasance and possible criminal conduct and whatnot, and fraud and things about universities, well, they stated that I may receive a response from the school within 45 days. And of course, the Department of Education and other outlets really don't even leave any methods for reporting. Naturally, I have ceased to receive responses from legislators and other outlets that I have forwarded emails to about this behavior. And of course, because I will not agree to these user terms, I won't agree to the jurisdiction of New York City as pertains to a university based in Nebraska, because I did not attend a university in New York City. I attend a university in Nebraska. Because I will not agree to these terms, therefore I cannot do the homework, and I do expect that before the 45 days is up, I will be expelled from this institution, and naturally then I will get a really snotty response from the school, forwarded from the VA, and of course the VA will say that they cannot compel any action. Hence, this system is incredibly corrupt. It is a conspiracy throughout nearly every level, as I have hoped to establish through various evidence and corroborative methods. These people know what they're doing, and they are covering each other, and they're working together in a conspiracy to deprive students, citizens, and everyone involved of their rights. But more importantly, they are appropriating funds from the people to do this. This is exactly like the statement, if you don't feed your army, then you'll be feeding someone else's. Except they are essentially taking money from the people and saying that it's their property to use any way they would like. And that practically speaking, the people who are having their money taken from them through all these taxation methods and whatnot have nothing that they can do about it, and that these people can appropriate funds from the people and use those funds against the people in any way they see fit, and they can do whatever they want. They can violate their own bylaws, they can violate the laws of the land, supreme law of the land, the Constitution, They can violate all kinds of code statutes and whatnot, and nothing can be done against them. And clearly they fear the dissemination of this, and so they are doing their best to keep any evidence from being disseminated further about their actions at this institution. Thank you. If you have enjoyed this content, please like this video, share it, leave a comment if you so desire, and check out any other content that I may have made, especially the written content, as I have published numerous books. As always, stay tuned. There will be more.